Alright folks, welcome back everyone. Bienvenidos a todos. Hoy es el día 32, right? 32 is day 32. Let's get right into it. We're running a little bit behind, so I think today we're just gonna do all the exercises and I'll do the legendary stuff tomorrow. Yeah, I'll cut a little bit of time. Okay, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. I kind of wanted to get to this point a lot earlier, maybe an hour earlier, you know? Okay, so let's go over this really quickly. Talk about interactions. We had a lot of verbs yesterday. Llamar, ver, visitar, conocer, enseñar, feel like I'm missing one. That's okay. We have gente, masculine. La parte, feminine. País. Any other locations? Any other locations? People. Pueblo. Ciudad. Parque. Zoológico. Zoológico. Like there was something else. Or visiting and knowing. Was there a grammar point? Talk about interactions. Oh, a plus person. Persona. That was something I kept dropping yesterday. Alright, so let's go over the pods and stuff, see if I remember off the top of my head. So we had 2 pods. Right. 2 pods. I don't remember what the title of the pods are. Okay, pod 1. Way up here. Village. Village grandparents. Sure enough, this was Lily. Basically, a person was sharing that they're nice grandparents. Like abuelos simpáticos, right? They hang out and visit their grandparents, so visitar. Quiero visitar y ver, to see parents, and that they live in a village, basically. I actually don't remember what word they use for village, now that I think about it. Huh. And then Lily, of course, said, well, that's interesting. If I cared about it, if I cared about villages, if I cared about village folk. Obviously she doesn't. There are very few things she cares about. Okay. Next one was, I think this was Falstaff, right? Yeah, humans and travel. Humans and travel. So it was two people talking about where they live. Like, where people live. Oh, no, not where people live. This is two women. Dos mujeres. Dos mujeres. They were talking about how they go to hospitals. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, they go to hospitals to like see doctors, right? Like seeing doctors and whatnot. And of course, Falstaff would say, people go to see each other, like go to places and talk about go to places. What bears do is, they just go around, look for a nice tree, and chill, easy. And then our last thing was pizza. So did I learn anything else? Hospitals, médicos, hospital. Nope. Still very limited. So the quest. It's the quest for pizza. Which I thought it might be Junior or Zadi. Turns out all three. So we're in the park and Eddie is just chilling over here, like doodling and stuff. And then Vikram seems to always be like the stand guy for whatever reason. So he's over here, Vikram, for his like Vix. And then we have a picnic table down here. And we have Lily and Zadi next to each other. And Junior is over here, right? And basically Junior go talk to Lily and Lily's like, I want two pizzas. I want a pizza. And then Zadi's like, yo, I want a pizza too. And Junior being Junior, nice little kid, we go to Vikram and he's like, can I have two pizzas? And then this is an interesting question. Then Vikram says, or like you want to click like, oh, so two pizzas. And one of the choices is 3 pizzas. But that's technically wrong because Junior wouldn't be greedy, right? So it's 2 pizzas. And they say it's, and Vikram said, 10 dólares, por favor, right? So no tiene dinero. So then you go to Eddie, and Eddie asks, you ask Eddie, can I have $10? And Eddie's like, 10 dólares. Que, right? What you call por qué? And he's like, well, I'm buying 2 pizzas for Lily and for friends. And Eddie's like, oh, that's pretty sweet. Here's $10. So Eddie is just like, all right, for your good friends. You go back, you grab the pizza. You're like, 2 pizzas. There you go. He didn't even buy pizza for himself. That's it. Good old Junior. All right. Oh, wait. I know. Another one. Amor. Sorry, amor. Because amor was used in this family stuff, right? To love. Oh, and tele. La tele. Lugar. There's also lugar. I'm not sure if Alguno. I don't think Alguno was part of this one. But lugar, or place. All right. Let's get into it. We'll do a truncated version of today. We're not gonna do the legendaries, just pop open, right? What else? Did I miss anything else? Enseñar, amar, ver. Oh, usualmente. Man, usualmente and normalmente just slips my mind. Ayudar, that's fine. Alguno, oh, alguno was part of this. And the rest is fine. Yep. Okay. Alright, describe how you feel. Tienes hambre. Okay, hungry. We have ganas. Tengo ganas. Feel like. So I have this feeling to eat pizza. Agua porque sed. Sed for thirsty. Calor. Calor for hot. Yes. And frío. Okay. Tener. Remember that the verb querer can look different in certain things with its a changing to le. Like yeah, and then tango does the same. Yeah. Tango, tienes, tiene, tenemos, and tienen. Pretty good. Alright. Let's boost.
20 o 21.
21. Oh, we're still counting up. Okay. 20 or 21. Oh, I see what you did there. 21.
Ellos no son adultos.
Adultos. Okay, adults. Oops.
Mis padres.
Mis padres son adultos. Adultos.
Mis padres son jóvenes.
Jóvenes. Okay. Opposite. And there's a extra accent, right? In the plural version. Muchas mujeres aquí son jóvenes.
¿Cuántos años tienes tú?
How? I'm looking for how many years you have because that's still fine in interpretation. How many years you have?
¿Cuántos años tiene el señor Romero? ¿Cuántos
¿Cuántos años
tiene
el señor
Romero? ¿Cuántos
Romero.
años tiene el señor Romero?
Mi hijo se llama Luis.
Oh, how old is he?
¿Tú
Okay.
tienes
that's fine.
21 años?
21. Did I know that? 21? No, this is special actually.
21
21
años.
when it's next to años. Pretty sure. Because if you do it isolated, it's still 21. But this is a special thing. Kind of like alguno as well. It's probably going to show up again. I didn't see it yesterday, but maybe we'll see it today.
No, yo no tengo 21 años.
Ah, no. Okay, ¿cuántos años tienes?
Ella tiene 22 años.
22. Oh, I totally forgot about the accent. So that means I wasn't... Yeah, I was placing the accent in a different place. I was placing it on bent. 22.
¿22? ¿Cuántos años tienen las señoritas?
Dangerous question.
¿Cuántos? Tienen. Tienen las señoritas.
Adultos.
Adultos aquí
Aquí
son jóvenes. Okay.
Las
Las
señoritas
tienen
tienen 22
22 años. Okay. Rápido, rápido, right?
La pizza.
La pizza.
25.
25.
Yo tengo 25 años.
Mamá, tengo
Tengo
sed.
sed.
24 días.
24.
24.
El chico
tiene 24 años.
Tengo mucha hambre.
Hambre. Hungry. Eduardo tiene mucha hambre y no hay comida. Comida en la nevera.
¿Quieres una pizza?
Sí, claro. Naturally.
Ellos quieren 2 jugos.
Repeat.
Bebo muchos jugos porque tengo sed. Bebo muchos jugos. Porque es sed. Bebo muchos jugos porque tengo sed.
Oh.
Tengo.
Oh, tango. Sit. Oh, I gotta make sure I'm using tener. Uf.
Tú no tienes 23 años.
23. Yep.
Mi esposo.
Mi esposo no tiene 23 años. ¿Cuántas
pizzas
¿Cuántas pizzas hay?
hay?
Para la fiesta?
Fiesta.
How did I kick Eris instead of para? Eris.
Ella
Jeez. Ella quiere dos jugos.
Jugos.
Porque tiene sed.
Por ti.
Okay.
Necesita
23
dólares.
Okay.
¿Cuántas
pizzas hay? Para
la fiesta?
Okay. All right. What else are we learning? Let's go. Gray. Wait, we already had gris. We already had marron.
Tengo frío.
Okay, tengo frío. Sure. Whoops. I am water.
El abrigo.
El abrigo
Yo
is also
tengo
review.
mucho calor.
Calor. Okay. Okay. For frío and calor. ¿Quién tiene mucho calor? Okay.
Mi marido.
Mi marido siempre tiene calor.
Estos abrigos son marrones.
¿Quieres estos pantalones marrones?
¿Quieres estos pantalones marrones?
Marrón.
¿Por qué tienes 4 abrigos?
Porque tengo mucho frío. Oh, yeah. If you have 4 coats.
Tengo puesto un abrigo gris.
Tengo puesto un abrigo gris. Another word for dress or coat. Wait, what is
Puesto.
this? Oh, no.
Puesto.
I have on. I don't actually know how this works.
Puesto.
So it's kind of like a tango kit, but still puesto. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look in. Have on a. I don't remember how puesto works. Lucia no tiene frío porque tiene puesto su abrigo.
Abrigo.
Tengo puesto un abrigo largo.
Long.
Tenemos
3 vestidos largos. Okay.
Tengo un.
Tengo un. Oh, I have on. Tengo
Pues
puesto
un
abrigo
largo.
largo. Okay.
Él tiene
Dos
2
faldas largas. Okay.
Ella Tiene.
Tiene puesto.
Puesto.
Puesto un
Un.
vestido largo.
Largo.
¿De verdad?
De verdad. Yep.
¿De verdad tú tienes 23 años? ¿Verdad?
Tienes.
Tú.
Tú tienes 23
20
años.
años.
No tengo miedo ahora.
Miedo ahora. Afraid. Miedo. Yeah, miedo.
Tengo miedo de la película.
De verdad. Pero es una comedia.
¿El niño tiene sueño?
Sueño. Sleepy.
Tengo sueño.
De verdad. Son las 3 de la tarde. Oh, 3 in the.
A mí no me gusta bailar.
Bailar. Okay. So now we have the act of dancing. And then the ami thing.
Esos animales tienen sed.
Animales. We have animal. Sort of. At animal. Animales. Okay. A Luis le gustan los animales y tiene un gato. Gato gris.
Tengo ganas de comer algo.
Ganas to like feel, right? To feel. Eating what? Something. Algo.
¿Tienes ganas de ir de compras? Tienes ganas. Ir.
Ir de compras?
¿Tienes ganas de ir de compras?
Ir
De
de
compras.
compras. Ah! Oh, ganas needs a de as well.
Nosotros no bailamos mucho.
Bailamos. Okay. Don't dance much. Okay. Ellas bailan con su abuelo. Okay.
Tengo ganas de bailar.
De verdad, pero tú nunca bailas.
Yo no bailo bien.
Yo no bailo bien. A funny observation.
Gris.
Abrigo.
Cerrado.
Cerrado. Bailar. Persona.
¿Tienes ganas de ir de compras? Ganas de ir de compras.
Okay. With a feel of thing. Okay. That's the end. Okay. Cool.
¿Tienes ganas de ir de compras? De ir de compras.
Pizzas.
¿Cuántas pizzas hay para la fiesta?
Tengo muchas ganas de bailar.
I really feel like dancing.
Tengo un abrigo bueno para el frío. Tengo un abrigo.
Abrigo para el... Wait.
Tengo un abrigo bueno para el frío.
Oh, bueno para el... Bueno para el frío. Good for the cold. Weather? Oh, weather is... Okay, weather is implied.
¿Cuántas pizzas hay para la fiesta?
Mi número favorito es el 21.
Mi número es el favorito. Es... Wait. Mi número...
Mi número favorito es el 21. Favorito es
I see.
el 21.
Okay.
Yo quisiera tener 21 años.
21 años. Would like to be 21 years old. Kind of a roundabout way of saying I would like to be considered an adult.
A mí no me gusta bailar.
A
mí no
me
gusta
gusta bailar.
bailar.
Tenemos ganas de bailar en esta fiesta.
El perro
El perro tiene sed.
Queremos
Queremos 2 jugos de manzana. 21 y 22. Okay, there's 21. We're gonna continue without legending. Let's go.
Yo quiero una pizza.
Oscar.
Lynn camina a su casa.
Okay.
Ella tiene 2 pizzas.
Ok.
Ella ve a Oscar en la calle.
Hola,
Oh.
Lynn. ¿Y esas pizzas?
Son del restaurante de Emilio.
Me encanta ese restaurante. Yo también quiero.
Ah, pero el restaurante está cerrado.
¡Ay, no!
Aw.
Tú tienes 2 pizzas. ¿Puedo comprar una de tus pizzas?
No, lo siento. Una es para mi abuela Lucy y la otra es para mí.
¿Puedo comer un poco de tu pizza?
Oh, Oscar and Lucy's got a thing with Lynn, man. I'm telling you.
No, Oscar. Eso es extraño.
Extraño exchange.
Lynn se va.
Ahora de verdad quiero una pizza de ese restaurante.
Yeah, he's trying to sneak a slice from the pizza because the restaurant is closed, but she already ordered.
Oscar llama a alguien por teléfono.
Oops. Alguien. Called someone. Yeah, called someone by
Hola,
phone.
Lucy. Soy Oscar. ¿Tienes planes para la cena?
What's your plan for dinner?
Sí, pizza con Lynn. ¿Quieres comer con nosotras?
Well played, Oscar.
Sí, está bien. Muchas gracias.
Dang. Yeah. You wanted her to invite him for dinner? Well played. Lo siento. Planes. Pero. Ahora. Abuela. Nice. That was pretty good story. Alright. Alright, we need keyboard. Alright, let's go.
Limpio.
Limpio.
Adulto.
Adulto.
Negro.
Negro. Sucio.
El niño.
El niño no es un adulto.
¿Cuántos años tiene? ¿Cuántos? ¿Cuántos años?
¿Cuántos años tiene tus padres?
Mis amigos tienen 22 años.
Mi número favorito es
Oh.
el 21.
I had a typo.
Mis abuelos no son jóvenes.
¿Cuántos años tiene? ¿Cuántas? ¿Cuántos?
Las señoritas tienen 22 años.
Soy un adulto.
Las señoritas no tienen
20
20
años.
años.
Sí. Lo que dice usted tiene 21 años.
Mi favor es el 21.
That's just a roundabout way to show that 21 can be used as a number without the 21. Tenemos $22. Up and away.
Nervioso.
Amarillo.
Amarillo.
Jugos.
Limpio.
Tiene sed. Usted. Sed.
Hermano. Tiene 20 años.
21.
21, 22, 23.
Ella quiere 2 jugos porque tiene sed.
Este niño tiene hambre a menudo. Hambre.
Nosotros
tenemos 24 años. Oh, 24. Mi padre no
tiene
23 años.
La pizza cuesta 25 pesos.
The wrong thing. Tengo 25.
No, gracias. No tengo hambre, pero tengo sed. ¿Tienes jugos o una cerveza?
Me gusta el número 25.
Tienen.
Tienes.
Felipe, tengo hambre, pero no tenemos comida. Tengo que ir al supermercado, pero estoy cansada. Compramos pizzas.
Oh, pero estoy cansado. Oh, they want to go. My bad. I thought they were out of it already. Did I screw this up? No. I'm gonna use usted most of the time. Right. Tiene.
Mi
esposo. Mi esposo
tiene 23 años.
How was this incorrect before?
Felipe, tengo hambre, pero no tenemos comida.
Oh, there I see.
Guapo.
Guapo.
Largo.
Negro. Rubio. Okay.
Ella tiene puesto un vestido largo. Peso. Puesto.
Abrigo.
Rubio.
Adulto.
Cerrado. Tenemos 3 vestidos largos.
Sucio.
Persona.
Gris.
Gris.
Frío.
Frío.
Yo tengo mucho calor.
Tengo puesto.
Tengo puesto un abrigo bonito.
Quiero comprar unos zapatos grises.
No, no quiero ir al museo. Tengo mucho calor. Vamos a la piscina.
Piscina. ¿Quiere nadar?
Tenemos mucho frío esta mañana.
Oops. How's it going? It's going pretty alright. We're kind of strapped for time today, so just doing our routine. Me encanta. Me encanta. No. Eso. Oh. Or aquel vestido. I'm kind of actually curious. Vestido gris. Okay. All right.
Tengo
Tengo un
un abrigo bonito puesto.
on opuesto. How are you doing? What have you been up to since the last time we spoke, SD? Mi abrigo es
Marrón.
marrones. Tengo frío. Necesito mi abrigo. Tengo un abrigo. Oh. Oh, Okay, just testing. You're good. You got back from Washington a few days ago. It was cold. We went around the White House area, sightseeing and stuff. Okay, go on. We still have I didn't end up watching all of Narnia yet. Actually, that was the last time we spoke.
Gusta.
Me gusta tu sombrero.
Sombrero. Marrón. Mucho.
Tengo mucho calor. No necesito una chaqueta. Chaqueta works.
Tenemos mucho frío esta mañana.
You saw the cherry blossoms? Aw, that's nice. That's great. The Narnia play wasn't bad. The one you guys saw before, which was the second one in the series, was very good though. When compared to that, this one was lackluster. Oh, okay, so is this like the third one? Where is this place?
Amarillo.
Amarillo. Rubio.
Animales. Persona.
This is the first. Ah, okay.
Tú bailas.
Tú bailas mucho con tu novia. How was like the place? Like how was the people? Was it crowded? Was it nice? How? Give me more details.
Limpio. Abierto.
Bailar. Adulto.
De verdad.
De verdad, ¿tú tienes 23 años? Oh.
Nosotros no bailamos mucho, bailamos.
Tiene.
¿De verdad tienes mucho frío?
It was pretty crowded. Yeah, it wasn't too overwhelming though. I see. You went around pretty early, so there weren't too many people there. Yeah. Have you seen cherry blossoms before? Have I already asked this when we were talking about it?
De.
Nosotras. No, you have not? So, what do you think? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel everything Japanese people make it out to be? I'm kidding, of course, but I don't know you're into the symbolism of sakura trees, but there is quite that feeling when you're just looking at a cherry blossoms just chilling there.
Tienen.
Necesito cansado. Dormir un poco. Okay.
Tengo miedo de estos animales.
El niño tiene miedo de tu perro.
Man, you don't know, you didn't really have any feelings per se, you just thought they were nice and then went about your business. Okay. Yeah. One of the things, I don't know if it's a coincidence. It's largely a coincidence because I didn't know this about Japanese before for a while. But whenever I look at plants, especially blossoming trees, it's a very fleeting moment. So when you sit there and you're like, or standing there and you're looking at the trees, those blossoms like come and die within the, like those actual little things, those things die after like 2 weeks. When they blossom, they fall off and then they give way to trees, to leaves, right? Every other time the tree is not that color. So the whole idea is that when you're viewing cherry blossoms, which is also coincidence, it often gives you a feeling of fleeting moments. And the idea of fleeting moments is you celebrate the moment. It's something everyone's sharing. You gather around and cherry blossom and you have a fun time, right? You enjoy the moment that you're in among the cherry blossoms. And when that moment is over, things will turn over. It's a fleeting moment. Each moment is very important and monumental. So that's kind of the idea anyways, in a very truncated, superficial way. But generally, it's one of those things you observe something. Flower culture. Like flower culture in China and both like China and Japanese culture tends to go and talk about these like fleeting moments. When a flower blooms only for like for a couple, like less than a day before it dies, and it only blooms like once every 20 years or 30 years or something like that. Like incredible flowers, like particular flowers that I can see in media and whatnot. It's about those little moments. Yeah, you were a bit more potato brain. You saw them though. Oh, nice, pink trees. That's fine. I mean, obviously it's the first time, but that was kind of the idea behind why there are cherry blossom viewing or flower viewings in general. There are flowers that, you know, come around every year, which are like cherry blossoms, but they're only around in like a very, very small portion of the year. I haven't ever gone to like the viewing of a auspicious flower, but apparently that's kind of one of those things. Like, did you see the solar eclipse? Or actually, I'm not sure where you are if you had a chance, but over here in the United States, it happened twice in a year. I think it was last year, where the total solar eclipse happened. So it's kind of like one of those things. Oh yeah, that's right. It was in the path. New York was in the path. I wasn't sure how. Also, yeah. So it's kind of like that. You know, you saw the solar eclipse. It's one of those things. You saw it. It's so brief, but it's kind of like an experience, right? Obviously, cherry blossoms happen more often than a total solar eclipse, but or like seeing a comet or something come by. Something about it. Yeah. Kind of like a New Year's celebration, spring festivals. Come by once a year. Although in this case, cherry blossoms is life, right? It's a living thing that is turning over, while New Year, like solar eclipse and New Year's, they're conceptual, they're figurative concepts, where while you're looking at a flower, it's literally turning over. That is its lifespan. You slept through them? I didn't know they happened. I checked it out. I ran through a solar eclipse. So like during the second solar eclipse, I was running. When I walked out, I'm like, it's one of those weird moments where it seems like everything's so dim, but everything's so lit at the same time. Like the end of the world kind of situation. Like all at the same time, everything seems really dark, but everything is also lit. So it has like this weird filter, like you're wearing sunglasses the whole time. And then when I was running, the eclipse happened. Like a bunch of people like had those things, those like eye protection stuff while I was running, because at some point when I was coming back on my circuit, one of my neighbors was like, hey, do you want to check it out? It's like, no, that's okay. I know what's going on. And so I didn't want to like stare at the eclipse, but it was kind of nice. I didn't watch the first one, but the second one happened to be right when I was running. So it was an interesting feeling when you walk outside and everything is both, all the objects are visible like day, but the whole area was like in this really weird dark feeling. So it was both dark and lit at the same time. Very weird. Funny moments. It's just, yeah, you slept through both of them. Your sleep schedule is very erratic. Okay. Well, hopefully that's not affecting your quality of life, SD. You gotta pep up. For most of last year, you slept through the mornings and woke up at night. I can relate to that. I can definitely relate to that. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. The boy. Okay.
Mi favorito perro.
Oh, animal. No,
Animal.
es el
Perro.
Okay. What? Oh, backwards. Oops. We don't dance. No bailamos mucho.
Mi hija.
What about food? You didn't talk about food. What'd you do for food, SD? Pizza and food trucks? What kind of pizza? And what kind of food trucks? Interesting, food trucks. Was something going on there?
Tiene.
Oh, that's right.
Sueño.
Tengo ganas de escuchar música.
Tiene. Oh, wait. Uh-oh. Am I drawing a blank? I don't remember anymore. Really? I was gonna go with something else. Huh.
Tengo muchas ganas de bailar. Tengo muchas ganas de bailar. Tengo muchas ganas de bailar.
That's also not what I thought. Oh. Oh, because of... Oh. Then you order from this local... Okay, you had a pepperoni, sausage, and pepper pizza the first day. Then you order from this local spot the next day. It was like southern food. It sucked and was expensive. Oh, rip. And you don't remember what you ate on third day. Fourth day, that food truck, it was chicken tenders and fries for $20. Didn't know you could ruin chicken tenders until then. Yikes. How did all of this happen? Am I even familiar with chicken tenders? You guys didn't go to Chinatown? Oh yeah, I forgot that Momofuku closed permanently due to COVID. Yeah, I forgot that the Momofuku in DC permanently closed. No, you didn't, unfortunately. You remember the recommendation you gave me to? Not by name, but it's just that you were... Okay. You drove through it, I see.
Mi animal favorito es perro.
Dang. So, what you're telling me is you'd even say if you liked the pizza on the first day. So you're telling me you had a not memorable pizza, then you went to a place that sucked and is expensive, and then the third day you're like, nah, it's not even memorable, and then the fourth day you just had even more suck. Everything else sucked. Oh boy, sorry to hear that. I think honestly, if I were gonna do a hot take about the food, because I used to be a local around the area, if I were hosting and like say I had a car, we'd probably actually drive out of the DC area and head to Rockville and go to like Joe's Noodle House. It's about like 30 minutes away. It's like the greater DC area. That's part of Maryland, or so you head out to Rockville because you know you're at that edge. So, well, the problem with the DC food area is lots of those areas relocated. They got pushed out. What is it called? Gentrification? I think that's probably what I would say. Gentrification happened in the DC area. Basically, like, people with money came in and then elevated like the cost of things, but it makes the place like nicer and more commerce friendly. But at the same time, the people who couldn't afford to live there anymore moved out. Yeah, in New York City right now. Yeah, that's what's happening. Gentrification happened. Oh yeah, that's right. You're in New York City, so like Manhattan, like lower Manhattan is getting gentrified, right? So lots of the stuff is relocating elsewhere. So lots of the former like Chinatowns have sprawled back out to other places like Brooklyn and Queens and whatnot. So you can kind of see like the shadow of what it was. My home Chinatown was along Canal Street, the one in Lower Manhattan, and it's like a shadow of its former self. Now it's like Flushing is still going strong, and then you have one in Queens and Brooklyn. Yeah, so that's kind of why you kind of want to stick to very specific places that survive the gentrification, as opposed to going to any location that is temporary. Momofuku is a very viral and important restaurant, and that closed down due to like COVID, the management and how much it costs. But that is one of the celebrity people who has one in like the West Coast. I think his original place is in West Coast or something, but there was one in DC actually before it was permanently closed. It's cost rent way too high. Yeah. Yeah, things become like consistent, but they're not like great, or like what I mean is they're not interesting, but they become safer, right? Safer things. Convenience is elevated in gentrification, but novelty and interest kind of appreciates. De verdad. I don't know. Wait, you know what? I'm gonna try to phrase this differently. How about just tiene miedo? Oh, I meant no, yeah, I was thinking ustedes tiene. I don't know how this works. Why de verdad? I guess really? Oh, I guess that's what they're using for really. I see. I see what they mean now. Yeah, it's a way to say really. Yeah, I guess. I was gonna say like something else, like maybe en verdad, de verdad. Okay, I see. So can you form it in a sentence as well? Like for example, place it in de verdad. You can place it in place of like mucho. Can you actually do that? Or muy? Does it function in the same position when you say de verdad? Because that's how I was interpreting that question. Or is it at the end? Like following something, like if you were making a statement, for example, I'm really afraid, right? I'm really afraid instead in a statement. So does de verdad go at the end? Go after miedo? Or does it still stay in the front? Oh, it goes after the end. Okay, thanks. Okay.
Me.
You can put it in the front and at the end. Oh, okay. Either. Okay. Interesting. I wasn't familiar with that.
Favorito.
Whoops. Mi animal
Favorito. Perro.
Tengo un abrigo bueno para el frío. ¿De verdad tienes miedo? ¿Tienes miedo de verdad? Yeah, I was thinking of those two. Well, we'll have to try the second one because didn't test it. Mi esposo.
No.
Esposo no.
Tiene 23 años.
Okay. Oh, here we go. ¿Tienes miedo de verdad? Ah, yep. There you go.
Tenemos mucho frío esta mañana.
Dos. Frío.
Felipe, tengo hambre, pero no tenemos comida. Tengo que ir. ¿Qué tienes puesto hoy?
¿Qué tienes puesto hoy? I gotta do taxes today, so we're going to try to watch anime today, provided I don't like go into midnight, going too late, and then I gotta do taxes. Like literally do the taxes. I have been reading about certain things that I have to do for taxes for a while, but I haven't actually literally do my taxes yet. Oh, today.
Mi.
Oh,
Marido.
Marido
Tiene.
siempre tiene
Calor.
Tengo muchas ganas de bailar.
Oh, ganas de. Okay. Right.
Mi hija tiene sueño.
Okay. No tengo ganas de estudiar hoy. Yeah, to feel like, etc. Yeah. I just gotta remember that I'm not conjugating in a different way. Oh. Okay. Do I need like? What is it? Lao or L? I was seeing if I needed a oh, I've got de, but I was seeing if I needed an article. Hold on. I've got the de. Wait, is pizza feminine or masculine? Hold up, we'll find out. We'll find out. Just don't even at me right now, okay? They just don't want it. Interesting. Interesting. No, we're not doing legend today. I don't have time.
Quiero un perro.
Papá, tenemos que hablar.
Oh, this one's good.
Quiero un perro.
Junior, tener un perro es mucho trabajo.
Papá, por favor. Soy muy responsable.
¿Ah, sí? Entonces, tienes que limpiar el carro.
Está bien.
Lavar el baño.
Yeah, we plan to finish the unit. Yeah.
Sí.
Y lavar las ventanas.
And we'll go back and do the legend tomorrow. All of them.
¡Ay, no!
3 horas después, Junior termina de limpiar.
Papá, mira.
¡Qué bien! Tú eres muy responsable. Ahora puedes tener un perro.
No, gracias. No quiero un perro.
¿Por qué no?
Estoy muy cansado. No quiero ser responsable.
And there you go. Quiero cansado. Cansado. Ventanas. Entonces, perro. Life stories. Alright, let's do our practice.
Me encanta.
Me encanta la música de Enrique.
Los perros de Carla son grandes. Carla, son grandes.
They should be quick. Okay. Spanish facts. Although you may already know this, but C and Z in Spanish is pronounced as a the. Zapatos. I use s, but interesting. Zapatos. Interesting. That's only Spain. Yeah, I use zapatos most of the time. It's not. I would say it's not only Spain, but what I mean by it is I use because of Chinese. So not for the reason of Spanish, but I use it because I speak Chinese. But yeah, kind of a mix for me. Yeah. But that is an interesting fact. Using the zapatos. And even in except for when it's k, right? It's when it's but it's only when it's not k. Okay. Got it. Interesting. Yeah, I've gotten so used to saying largely because of high school. So maybe we'll adopt it. Yeah. Like conozco. Conozco would be an interesting one. I should listen for that, see what it sounds like. We just got conocer yesterday. Conozco. Pero
¿Te gusta Mado?
¿Te gusta la ropa de Madonna?
Nos gusta mucho la música de Madonna.
I don't know what I clicked incorrectly.
Nos gusta. Nos gusta mucho la música de Madonna. La música de Madonna.
English is harder than Spanish. La ropa de Duo siempre es elegante. And I don't mean like comparing. I'm talking about like translating Spanish back to English is harder than the other way around. I make more English errors translating than anything else. In all three languages, honestly. Largely because Duolingo still expects you to be grammatically correct in English. I'm like, okay.
La. Michael.
You loose.
Mus. De. Michael es mi favorita.
Have you tried out Dreaming Spanish? It's all YouTube comprehensible, so I'm assuming you could stream it? No, you cannot stream Dreaming Spanish. because most of that are restreaming YouTube content. So, when you restream someone else's content, it ends up on a queue, and they can choose whenever to copyright strike you or take down the stuff. This happens. I know this because when you're streaming video games, you get hits and queues for claiming as well. You don't have to claim them, obviously, but when I was like playing, for example, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, anyone who was posting certain cutscenes and whatnot, they all end up on my copyright queue as well, even though I don't even own the material. So even if it's under fair use, it would come up. So Dreaming Spanish is their YouTube videos. I looked up Dreaming Spanish though, thanks for your suggestion, and I looked at it. It is comprehensive, like it's CI. The guy is unapologetically CI, which I actually disagree with, but that's a very interesting way to interact with Spanish. It's very popular, but I can't stream it, or I wouldn't want to stream it because at any time they can choose to retroactively claim their YouTube videos. I think the setup of Dreaming Spanish is fantastic. The business model is dubious, in my opinion, because it's not in a lot of the content is double dipping on viewership. So they're kind of double dipping, which is interesting. Yeah, CI is gaining lots of traction in language learning space and just on the internet in general. Yeah. It has gained traction for a while, but thanks to the internet, it's got a big boost. Yeah, comprehensible input is like the buzzword next to immersion, right? I actually even think CI might have swallowed up immersion. It's like most people who use the jargon, right, use buzzwords like immersion, they're actually referring to CI. So it gets swallowed up. It's kind of like LLMs get swallowed up in generative AI. Like generative AI is swallowing up LLMs. So whenever someone's referring to generative AI, they're talking about LLMs. Yeah. I do CI in my own free time. So because I don't I try to avoid restreaming content. Unless there's some sort of explicit clause that they say are off, like they offered it and contributed to public domain, which they did not. Wanikani and Hanzahiro did though. Duolingo already has a platform. It would be cool though. I do like the whole Dreaming Spanish thing. I think the one thing that stick out that I know that I can't stream this is because they're double dipping on their own content. It's kind of like having which is a perfectly valid model for stuff. Like for example, I enjoy watching Corridor Crew. Corridor has their own website in which they have the videos that they have, but they also make separate production videos for that website. But those videos may also be redirected to YouTube as well. And that's what Dreaming Spanish does. So they have multiple ways to fund their thing, but it is still double dipping. You see multiple TikToks with close to 1 million likes and even more views when people promote comprehensible input stuff. Yeah, encouraging people to learn like kids do. Yeah. Yep. Comprehensible input. many buzzwords, but CI is definitely one of them. Easy listening is another. Easy listening. CI. Grades. Any form of grades. So any graded stuff. So if you put graded stuff in your like content and whatnot, it spikes really high. What's another one? Immersion. Immersion is still quite an excellent buzzword. I don't have these words in anywhere, obviously, because I'm tackling language learning approaches as opposed to what is very good or what is very bad. I would have to actually know if it's good or bad, because my only prior experience for most of these languages is formal education. Easy listening, no koto o iku koto ga nai. Yeah. So if you put easy listening, I think that's a really big bonus. And I think those people are very good at it. Obviously I'm not very good at it, but I do listen to things comprehensively. It's a very reliable thing. If I get the go ahead, right? If a developer say contacts me, or someone said like, hey, don't worry, stream this, I'll show it. You got my guarantees. Like what I mean is, if someone wants that, like I have no problems with Wagotabi and stuff, but the problem here is there's no guarantees. I actually quite like the way unapologetic the developer of Dreaming Spanish is. He's very unapologetic for all of his faults, like to a fault. And I quite like unapologetic designs, which gives you an opportunity to talk about trade-offs and whatnot. I did look into it about 3 weeks ago. I think it's over 3 weeks now. Human being, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, I try to find like some sort of fair use clause or something like that for Dreaming Spanish. Couldn't dig one up. Question: do you believe children are better at learning language than adults? I answered this a couple times before, which I will answer soon, actually, when I'm going over the 100-day review of Wanikani. Children and adults learn differently, so it's incredibly difficult to compare them. So, that's the quickest answer. However, if we're talking about better, you measure, like if you're talking about measure output, we would need to take obligation out of the equation in order to normalize the motivational effectors. And then we also have to take into account the adult's maturation in which they understand how they leverage what it is to be an adult, right? Then you can try to measure it with an output in order to do that. And one of the biggest weaknesses to the metrics of formal education versus comprehensible input versus immersion versus like heritage speaking, that type of thing, is pre-selection. Obligatory pre-selection and leveraging. So oftentimes one of the things that is a boon for comprehensible input is pre-selecting for adults that are voluntarily invested in learning by a method. And obviously those would generate really wonderful positive separation from adults who are obligated and not interested in learning a language, but it's part of a curriculum that is optional. So oftentimes the comparison is, here we're going to take all the data from people who are likely doing foreign language as a general education requirement, averaging all of that out, including those who want to learn a language, right? You take those performances and you compare it to a self-selected method. So the idea is, yes, it would create a statistical significance. Now, about children has a similar selection factor here. Children has obligations. Adults do not. So then when you're comparing those two sample sizes, it's rare to have a chance to have enough sample sizes where a child who learns a language and then later that same child is part of the same experimental group as an adult. So you have longitudinal studies where you compare a pile of people who learned a singular language per se. Like they're all monolinguals, and as an adult, they voluntarily, with the right pre-selection of wanting to learn another language, be obligated to learn another language. So the question is, how do you simulate the obligation? Well, one of the things is, say you get whoever learns a language is incentivized, right? You get a job, you get a career if you manage. So if you normalize the motivations and stuff between the child and the adult, which one learns better? Well, I'm gonna say conservatively, without any like data or anything like that, it's probably not as significant as you might think. So the prevailing thought is children are better than adults, like the conventional thought. And then there are people who would argue, if you pre-select for adults that have the proper leverage of adult strategies, they are capable, they have the potential to outpace their younger self. Both of these situations have pre-selection bias. It positions the hypotheses, like sample selecting bias, for that hypotheses. Now, if you took a random separation, I would say it's probably negligible, largely because one group doesn't have a representation and the other group does. Language learning, acquiring an acquisition of a language is mandatory for children's group. It is not mandatory for adults. So the best you can match is to select for adults who are motivated to learn a language. And with that comes a negligible difference with, I'm going to say modestly, a negligible difference. Sometimes even better or slightly worse, but probably averages out. So the long story short, in my opinion, is I reinforce the idea that there are selection biases. And those selection biases makes this question very, very difficult to answer in a like statistical manner, right? Like, for example, am I learning a language better than my child self? Well, my child self would be incapable of sorting Japanese, Chinese, and Spanish at the same time. Like, I'm going to tell you now, it's probably not going to be that. I'm leveraging something that that did not exist when I was a child. So is it fair to compare a skill, a large amount of skill sets that exist as my adult self that don't exist as my child? And then is it also fair to compare the child having certain obligations that don't exist as the adults? That's probably one of my greatest criticisms, one of my persistent criticisms when reading people talking about what is better, what is not. Well, first of all, when someone says, oh, this works for children, and you're talking to adults, then no, that's inappropriate. And then when you're talking to adults, yet you're trying to pass them on to children, that's inappropriate. As in, it's a translational approximation that is very, very, that is the very difference of it. So when you go and communicate and talk to people on how they learn, are you talking to adults? Are you talking to children? And then within the subset of adults, the adults will have a lot more spuriousness in terms of their learning strategies than children. children are far more consistent. So it may seem like they are consistently better than adults because adults are not individualized, trained, and practiced. So for example, if children are fundamentally closer to each other, but adults are fundamentally far apart from each other, like the range in their fossilization of their abilities, if you are able to normalize that spuriousness in adults, then you would be able to better, in my opinion, measure the capacities of learning between children and adults. Unfortunately, it's more a one-size-fits-all thing. So if you apply one strategy across the range of adults' profiles, you will probably get a more mediocre averaging effect than children, who you're talking about the one golden hallmark of psychology. Child development that's like the pinnacle, the foundation of a lot of psychological studies, because of all the groups. One of the fundamental consistent things that are viewed is when you're young. The growth, the pattern, the behavioralism, that stuff is incredibly consistent. The moment you start comparing it to a pile of representative adults, then you could have spuriousness. By chance, if you go out and survey some people, right, for a psychological evaluation, you can easily pre-select for cultural bias, background bias, multilingualism. There's so many things that would average in a meta-analysis. So adults are far more spurious. It's very difficult to compare it to children, which are incredibly consistent when it comes to psychological evaluations, at least in my opinion. That's what makes the field of psychology so nebulous the older people get. So all the way up to like maybe 13, 15 years old, possibly, incredibly consistent enough to be reliable psychological rigor. It stands up to scientific rigor. But then the moment you hit adulthood, like all that stuff, it just gets really wild. So in my opinion, if one from a scientific background, at least in my opinion, to suggest that you compare non-controlled experiments and non-blind observations as an adult group versus possibly less spurious and more consistent sampling, that is like comparing something that's uncontrolled and have no diligence of sampling control versus something that's very consistent. It's uninformative. Like you can't inform that. Like have a bunch of wild mice hanging around, and then you have a bunch of mice that are pre-selected to answer your own question. So which one do? You could say, oh, take the range of the wild mice, and if you take the best case scenario, then yes, adults learn better than kids. You take the worst case scenario, well, yes, adults learn slower than kids. You take the middle, it's negligible. That whole range can be compared to your stable control sample, which in this case, it might as well be the children that are the control sample. The control sample will give you the same results every single time. The adult sample, which is a wild sample, right? It can be anything at this point. So anecdotally, we're speaking, I'm learning that I can juggle far more due to my strategies. But these are not strategies that are popular or emphasized as language learners. Like what I mean is the stuff that people talk about, like what makes comprehensible input work and like what makes immersion work, what makes SRS work, it's mechanical. It's very described as a mechanical way, and rarely did I find any of those things informative to any other different things. Which is great because you want it to be generalizable. Like what does comprehensible input look like to many people? it should look similar, right? However, what differentiates a person who's successful at something as an adult is not what is common between all the adults. It is more likely what is uncommon between each adult. So for myself, I rarely engage with comprehensible input the way people are describing what comprehensible input is. So like, what does comprehensible input look like to the average person, or to the person who isn't me per se? Like, it's not a bad or good thing. Their exposure would be whatever they see in that video, right? Someone would say, oh yeah, I learned how to use comprehensible input now. Here's the video, this person described it to me. I look at the video and I'm like, okay, that seems like a good idea, but I already do something like that. But it looks very little like, in principle, it looks like that. It can be described like that too, but my entire examples and stuff would be different. Like, someone would say, oh, this is how you do comprehensible input. You read this grade reader and like you use this service, and then you farm YouTube videos to try to gauge your competence. It's like, yeah, that's the mechanical side of things. What does that look like in practice for me? It is contextually independent, right? How do you make Duolingo comprehensible input? Right? Comprehensible input is a concept of doing something slightly outside of the reach and acquiring new knowledge by juxtaposition to the things you know. So you can do that in many different ways. The idea is that the input is slightly outside your range of comprehensibility, right? Like the new stuff, but within the framework of something that you can comprehend to learn. Video games do that every day. So you don't see people trying to flock to making educational video games for comprehensible input. And before we talk about it, yes, I know I'm on Duolingo, it's a gamified app, but you don't see that, obviously, because comprehensible input looks like a specific thing, which I have problems with, largely because it does the same thing that formal education does and other forms of method does. They put a one-size-fits-all and then they put a price tag on it. That's probably a slightly longer take, but I'm... Oh no, Coffers is back. Okay, we gotta move along here, but yeah, you've always been of the mind that as an adult you can leverage intellect more. Yes, you feel like deliberately study coupled with some other effective method. Yep, which gets you faster than like a 7-year-old. You have so many tools, right? However, not everyone has the discipline to evaluate them. Here's why I have a problem, a little bit of a problem with selection. Adults, not all adults want to learn anymore. Do you know, like, for example, what percentage of adults continue to learn in a empirical way, like a discovery way? You can count, it's less than 10%. Like their professions in general, like things start operating on intuition and feeling and repetition and iteration. A child is constantly operating on novelty of learning and reformation and discovery. And there are adults that do that in their career. And if you take those adults, the sample size is too small, in my opinion. And it's also not relevant oftentimes to language learning. However, I would argue that if you take those adults, it would be stacking the deck. It would be sampling bias. You are comparing the best case scenario of reality. However, if you really truly want to see the heightened potential of an adult, like you're comparing the best situation with an adult, you select for the less than 10% adults who continue to learn and innovate on their own. So those adults would run circles around their younger self. But that's stacking the deck. That's sampling bias. So when you average everything else, I would say over 80% of adults stop learning. As in, like, stop innovating on their learning and leveraging whatever knowledge they have because they don't need to anymore. They focus on more important things like maintaining a steady job, family. Many of the activities are iterating on small things. You're iterating. So iterating doesn't produce novel strategies, right? Like, for example, what do you do when you can no longer read any of the characters in a language? You have to redevelop all the learning strategy. Like, what happens when your verb is always constantly in a different place now? Those strategies are fossilized for the vast majority of humans. By the time they go, like scientists in general, they get stuck in their own disciplines, for example. They're not incentivized to, like, suddenly, you know, if you start learning virology and then one day you're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna dump virology and go straight into protein chemistry, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna become a physicist in another 3 years. Rarely do you have to uproot constantly, so it's not normalized anymore, right? However, if you take an adult that decided to focus on language learning, no competition. No competition. If you take an adult that focused on the skill of language learning, and then you compare it to their younger self, no competition. The adult would be faster, in my opinion, because they have specialized and fossilized their learning for the acquisition of a language. Now, how many of those people exist? Not that many, probably very few, and I would say less than 5% of the world population. I mean, you can barely have, there are less than 10% of the world population with people who dedicated their life to science, which involves doing that task already, to constantly needing to learn a different way and adapt to different, and even then, those people aren't learning new languages. They are learning something new, and it can be like a language, but it's not literally a language. It's more like scientific jargon, like theorems, compounds, microcosms of linguistics, right? Like, how do you sound like a scientist? How do you tell the difference between a virologist and a microbiologist? There's very clear ways to tell who is a microbiologist and who's a virologist, and those disciplines don't coincide, but they don't also swap too often in interdisciplinary. So that's kind of my long spiel about it. Being in an interdisciplinary thing still doesn't guarantee that an adult wouldn't rely on fossilized skills. And even for myself, I'm not saying like I'm a poster child or I'm exceptional. I spend most of my life now not pursuing a specialized career, right? And I still find that I can exceed my younger self. Largely because my younger self was undisciplined, right? Discipline comes from knowledge and experience. That's just completely lacking. Like, if you took a child and you placed them in the middle of a desert and say, learn Spanish, right? It's like, well, how do you get to learn Spanish? Well, I guess you can put the child in the middle of a Spanish village, provided like all the other essentials are being met, and they would sponge the Spanish, right? Meanwhile, you put the adult in the middle of a Spanish, they would look for all the efficient tools and methods that they have come to rely on in order to acquire the Spanish. Now, here's the kicker. If that method does not exist, then that adult is going to have to reinvest, retraining all of their fossilized skills in order to acquire a new one. Meanwhile, the kid does not have to retrain. So how long is that retraining period? And you might be thinking, oh, that then it guarantees that educated adult is going to be slower than kids. Initially, it's going to be slower. And then the adult is more likely going to be consistently going to learn to a higher degree than the kid. The kid could easily decide to fossilize and rest at a period of mastery. They don't have to be incentivized to, like, the incentive goes away. So you can have kids that speak really well, very fluent, right? Very incredibly fluent, but have incredibly diminished execution of their language. For example, English. English is a great example. You have adults that go way into their 30s and 40s and they still use high school English because it's colloquialism. So fluency as an endpoint to measure potential language barriers, language competence also failed to take into account the upper limit of an adult due diligence and experience. I am more likely to continue learning a language in which I voluntarily choose to do versus a kid who is forced to do it, and then at some time they quit on their first thing because there are other interesting skills to tackle, right? Reaching fluency is the bottom of the barrel for an adult. Adults' aspirations go beyond the necessities of sufficiency. They go towards mastery. So how can you measure an adult proficiency if all your tests and measure is measured at the bare minimum of adults' incentives? That's one of my biggest criticisms about comparing adults and children. When was the last time a child says, "Oh man, I need to know 6,000 kanji in 2 years"? No, the child just keeps going. They go into it's disinteresting, right? Disinterested. Meanwhile, an adult, we'll just say like a 20-year-old. A 20-year-old, they have to juggle the idea that they know all this information. And in order to commit to it, they have to reach that upper limit. And so their dissatisfaction comes from the idea that they know where the pinnacle of mastery is. But they are more likely to quit because their sights are really high due to prior knowledge. Children are not. Children see something, they just do it, right? But they are not concerned. And why is that important to me? I try, ironically, to capture that emotion from a child while combining it with the due diligence of an adult. So my due diligence and discipline is I schedule when I learn, I partition, manage my lifestyle in order to best integrate all the things I practice. However, I approach it with a childlike mindset. I'm not concerned about the mastery of this language, even though everyone's going to tell you their favorite things. I'm not going to hyper optimize or min-max and overcomplicate my approach by using and juggling many people's favorite methods. I'm going to take the kid approach. I pick something that works and I start from there. So the idea by my approach when I'm self-studying is I'm leveraging what is very important as an adult. I know when I'm incompetent, where I try. I know how to read and output when something is not working. I know how to manage my time, right? These are the adult skills that a child does not have. Where does the child get these skills? Their parents or their guardians. If you rip that away, they no longer have the benefit of their adult surrogate. So to even bring this even better, the best way to learn a language is to leverage your adult discipline and your childlike zeal. Because a child does not learn language by themselves. They learn with adults around them. The adults are imparting a surrogate role that when you become an adult, you get to choose if you want to use them. A child learns a language because they're around adults that encourages them to learn a language. As an adult, you don't have children around you that obligate you to learn a language. Right? It's not like the children's gonna go up to you and say, hey, I think this is really fun. You should blindly jump into learning with me. But you can. But most people don't have that access. And what does that look like? And I encourage this, by the way, indirectly. When I hear people have children, when your child is interested in something, like, hey, you just found out your child is into drumming, join them. Do it with them. That's an obligation. So as a parent, you can be part of their learning experience, and they can be part of your learning experience. You learn to love again things that you didn't think you might like as a kid. So that childhood zeal is transferable when you become a parent. Parents tend to continue learning at some point because they have to relearn if they're choosing to participate in their child's activity. So in the long run, when someone says, do you believe children are better at learning languages than adults? The answer is no, because children do not learn language without adults. And adults can learn a language without a child. Which is crazy, if you think about it. So who's better? Well, an adult can choose to learn a language at any time. A child can be completely deficient in language for the rest of their life without an adult around. So in the end, the child is actually operating with the discipline and experience of parents and or teachers and or guardians, regardless if it's in a formal setting. So if you isolate a child and see if they're better, they're not going to acquire language than you think. It's going to be haphazard. There's going to be a lot of holes, especially in this day and age when you have doom scrolling. How many kids do you think when they were exposed to melon, like, I forgot what it's called, something melon, did they develop deficiency in their communication skills? Because an adult did not provide the discipline. Yeah, cocoa melon. Yeah, that is a meta study, by the way. That is a rigorous, scary meta study. When kids are left to their own devices and they want to watch what they want to watch, things like cocoa melon will take their attention, and they actually develop delayed communication skills without the oversight of adults. It's so crazy how undisciplined children can be. And that's the one thing that I feel adults, even older adults who aren't incentivized to learn another language for a professional reason or something, or pragmatic reason, they do not execute the same discipline that they would do to apply to a child. So I think the biggest counter argument to trying to say that children learn better are better at language learning than adults is the idea that children somehow have the discipline, the schedule, and the exposure of an adult's oversight. Well, a child can be completely illiterate without adult guidance. Heritage speaker. Without adult supervision, being around adults for all my life who spoke Chinese and Mandarin, I still grow up illiterate. No adult oversight, right? And now, what do? I can choose as an adult to efficiently learn a language. So no, I don't think child, in my opinion, stepping back in a bigger scope of things, I don't think child are better at language learning than adults. I actually think children can't even learn languages without adults around. You can make an argument, maybe AI will change it. You know, like, sure, I'll put a kid in front of ChatGPT and maybe they'll learn the language, but that sampling and data set comes from adults. It comes from a precursor. So it's really shocking how reductive language learners can become without having perspective on what is actually contributing to a child's language learning. multilingualism in children, right, in like countries and stuff, that's enforced by adults. If a child gets the choice of doing so, I can probably honestly tell you the human condition would dictate that the child probably learn one language, stick to that one language, and then move on to the next interesting thing in which that language gains accessibility to others. And that's probably English. So now we're also talking about like another thing about being the default language, right? So you could argue that most children might be better at learning English than adults. And I would probably agree with you. There's probably a statistical significance for learning English because there's an obligation exposure that doesn't require discipline. It's very difficult for a child to grow up in the modern age without being exposed to English. So in a way, that almost guarantees, sort of, that they would at least absorb some English with no adult oversight at all. But even then, programs like CoComelon will demonstrate that if a child gets to choose what they consume each day, they will develop communication deficiencies, regardless of the language. You watch something enough, a child will be hooked on it. And hooking on it can deflate any attempt to learn a language. It is the adult discipline that is the strongest asset, in my opinion, that isn't taken into consideration. How does Duolingo work? Well, the Duolingo does not work for anyone who lacks discipline. Even a child. Like, if there's no one telling you, if Duolingo isn't designed in a way to tell you, hey, you got this wrong, you should check it. You got this right, you should check it. Then when you throw a child into like a heritage speaking situation, they could say anything. They could do anything and acquire anything without context or discipline. And they would be underdeveloped in the language. And certainly they probably acquire patterns and whatnot, but it's still with the expectation that adults are the model. So it's kind of chicken or the egg, I would say. It's wild. I thought about this for some time. It's not a counter argument to comprehensible input, by the way. Like, I like that all these methods exist. The nice thing about having lots and lots of methods is that then adults can leverage that. Having lots and lots of methods are not very, in my opinion, this is my hot take. Having lots and lots of competing methods for language cripples a child. It cripples even teenagers, as in it will overwhelm them to the extent that they won't even try doing it in the first place. So is formal education bad at teaching kids if they want to learn a language? No. Is it efficient? Probably not. However, most of the time when people talk about teaching something efficiently, it also involves adult investment, like adult discipline, oversight. So when you when people say, oh, immersion works really well to another person, and that other person is using comprehensible input, but not like total immersion or something, both of them are likely adults. A child cannot distinguish between, in my opinion, what they are doing that is total immersion and what is comprehensible input, or both, and whatnot. So it is up to the adult supervision to provide that guidance. Otherwise, you could have them watching Roblox and doom scrolling for the rest of their lives, and they wouldn't develop a single language, even though they hear the same phrases over and over and over again. That's the scariest thing I've seen so far, the CoComelon thing. Like, it's a little bit disheartening, but at least some of that stuff is there, right? Crazy. I like the question though. I think I've been developing a way to answer that question a little bit better these days. Yeah. Adults, they have my... Now, voluntary, disciplined, obligated adults. No contests. They're better than their child counterpart. But that is stacking the deck, right? That's looking for an ideal situation in the adults. So you're elevating the potential of an adult while the child has no choice. The child's potential is due to its adult oversight, the surrounding adult oversight, oftentimes, especially when it comes to sticking to one task and learning one language. When given the choice of multiple languages, even in the United States, its pragmatism ends up taking hold. It's a foundational human condition. They would choose the most appropriate language, English, or whatever the most appropriate language it is to their country, right? That gives them the most accessibility, and they stop developing language then. And then they become those same adults that people keep saying learn worse than their child counterpart. You didn't take an adult, you didn't take a child that had oversight to learn lots of great languages and then suddenly compare those same adults who then take those skills to learn new languages later. That's no contest. Where are you getting most of this information from, right? Like, if you ask yourself, who is selling comprehensible input? Who is saying all these success stories? There are people who and then there is a counter argument. Some people said, oh, I just started picking up a language like 10 years ago. It's like, have you looked at their professional background? What do? They are statistically not representative of the average. Like, yes, you could argue but they said if they can do it, anyone can do it. It's like, well, yes, that is technically true. Eventually, all the adults could do that when you use their step, because you become more like them, right? You practice, you can acquire retraining very well with dedication. You have discipline. As a child, retraining a child midway is a different story, right? They do not have the discipline for that. So, yeah, I agree with most of the things that are being sold. They work. They work really well. Very, very well. The irony here is it's because they're adults that they work really well. If you ask a child, for example, let's ask a child to retrain. Let's think like a child. Well, hey, why don't you go learn Spanish? It's like, but that's boring. You're done. That's it, you're done. As an adult, well, you could tell the child, hey, well, Spanish could be useful in the future. You're done. The child thinks it's boring. You're done. Unless you want to push your adult oversight on the child. That's not provided by the child. The child has no capacity for that, in my opinion. They have to develop that capacity. So, kudos for being older. Alternatively, it's kind of nice to have a childlike enthusiasm. So I try to channel a childlike enthusiasm. Yeah. Just lots of adults aren't willing to put it as much time as a kid because of life and it's not practical. Yep, exactly. And it's so hard to test that. It's so difficult to test that. If you gave, how about if someone out there that really want to put their money where their mouth is, pay adults, fun, academically inclined adults, money to see how well they learn another language. It's providing obligation, right? It's removing obligation from the equation. But in this day and age, most of the samples deal with obligation. Even when you're comparing college students, it's obligation. In my opinion, I think comparing college students with children is like comparing adults at a point in which they are least likely to be enthusiastic about learning another language outside of use cases of language learning and then comparing it with that. Now, some people say, oh, well, we could select for all the kids who chose foreign language as a major, right? To stack the deck a little bit. Yeah, but they're in college. They have other things, like paying for college. Aspects of things that children are not juggling. So if you inject those obligations into children, would they slow down? It's like, well, they most likely would slow down. I think adults are already doing so many more things on top of learning a language that it's so incomprehensibly, in my opinion, it's inconceivable how one could so confidently say adults and children are comparable in learning strategies. It's so incredibly inconceivable. Like, when you wake up, I think an adult is thinking about an exponentially more amount of things, no matter how much they want to clear their mind. Meanwhile, a child is not juggling those things. So you aren't only just learning a language. You are doing everything else on top of learning a language. That's incredibly impressive. So if I were to argue who is better at learning a language, the potential lies in the adults. Like, they have the highest potential, but they don't operate at the highest potential available. Children do, or children mediocrely do. With adult oversight, they might operate at a higher potential because the adults are providing due discipline that children don't need to worry about. Yeah, children don't need to worry about how they're going to use their language to get food, how they're going to moderate their current language that they're using to get all their stuff in order to learn a new target language. Adult oversight alleviates all of that the child's necessity for those things. So do those count? In a very, very small lens, they don't count. Like, if you're only concerned about language learning, then yes, children are better than adults because you're not quantifying all the other things. So whenever someone says total immersion and comprehensible input is great and it's the one size fits all model, I disagree. It's not true. All these methods exist and all have their supporters and backers and whatnot, is because an adult mind can juggle all of them. That's what's so fantastic about being an adult thinker. You are no longer a child. It's crazy to even think that the best way to learn something is to pretend and simulate like you're a child again. So you're telling, in my opinion, this is a hot take, in my opinion, the best way to learn a language is to not leverage anything that makes you an adult and then trying all your power to try to be like the child you once were. I think that is so illogical and counterintuitive. It actually is incredibly disheartening. Like, how could you think spending the vast majority of time ignoring all your experience and all your leveraging and all your scheduling in order to think that is the best way to do things? You are both your old child and an adult. So what do? What is the most comprehensive way of learning a language? All of the above. Do a little column A, B, C, organize the schedule, whatever keeps you motivated, disciplined, and consistent. Because whatever you're doing, the more you mold everything into your lifestyle is what makes adults impressive. A child does not have a lifestyle yet. They're trying to establish that lifestyle. And how do they maintain that lifestyle? The adult does all the thinking, most of the thinking. So the child is not focused on that. They're unhinged and need to be directed towards something. So if there's anything that's kind of insulting, I find this a little bit insulting. When someone says, I cannot learn another language as an adult because I'm no longer a child, that's what I mean by the retroactive diminished return on thinking about what you can learn, right? You're thinking that because you're not a child anymore, which is ideal for language learning somehow, some way, that adults do not have a way to leverage all of that. So the whole idea behind this misconception is the idea that people keep drawing juxtapositions between how a child learns a language versus an adult. How about optimizing, individualizing, and dynamically developing things that are geared towards leveraging adult skills? The first one is probably addressing the idea of motivation and obligation, right? So you can cover that by reducing the amount of time. Okay, Duolingo seems to catch that pretty well. Remove the time investment, but that's one innovation that is very low-hanging fruit. What's the other innovation? How to crosstalk. Like, for example, no one talks about, like, actually, Dreaming Spanish actually kind of sort of talked about crosstalk. But now I'm not only talking about crosstalk between languages, but crosstalk between concepts. Mnemonics comes up a lot, right? Mnemonics, which is not contextualized. It doesn't have to be contextualized. Mnemonics can be isolated from the actual definitions and stuff. So you can create stories that abstractly attach to your mnemonics. So you can acquire vocabulary without needing to know how one can get from, like, saying Frankenstein, for example. Frankenstein is in the bathroom of the house and he has a copier. He was looking for his sandal under the sink. And since he has 2 left feet, he used a copier and copied the one sandal that he have. And what does this give me? Fu. Fu is to return. That is adult thinking. A child, you tell that to a child, and let's see how far the child gets. Like, what's Frankenstein? Mama, you know, ¿Quién es Frankenstein? Right? Like, what's a chapel? Right? So that kind of thing, like, why would you anticipate that Frankenstein, why does it make sense that Frankenstein could have 2 left feet? And why does the 2 left feet help me remember that it's Frankenstein in order for me to remember that the initial is Fu? That is adults. I think adults can do that, but most adults don't no longer do that. They don't need to do that. They barely need to learn new things. They need to iterate on things they already learned. And children are constantly that. And honestly, to beat over a dead horse, I'm probably just gonna pause here and then finish it tomorrow, because I love this discussion. So I'll probably finish this lesson tomorrow, make it a thing, because I got 3 digressions in today. I would bet the money on me as an adult. I would blow the socks out of my younger self. Like, no contest. But I really want to emphasize this gigantic but with 3 T's. I don't want, this is for, like, it's a weird flex. It's like the opposite of things. I am a outlier, in my opinion. I spend most of my time because I don't have a profession anymore. I'm not spending time needing to juggle, trying to make something that I've been working years and years to be better at. So I'm used to constantly trying new things. And that's only possible if you're not having to worry about food, money, shelter, a significant other, family members. So it's incredible. I don't even know how, like, emotionally, I can't express how disappointing that someone thinks they can do all of that and still be unable to learn a language better than their younger self, if not as good as their younger self, all provided that there's an even playing field, right? So to me, I'm biased. I'm very biased, and there's probably lots of holes in my anecdotal narrative because this isn't based on scientific evidence, right? This is all corollary stuff that I'm aware of so far. Whoever you are, if you are older, you are far more competent than you were younger. Now the question is, how do you tap into that? And I think that answer is so hard to put in one box. But I think in the future, there are going to be systems and interacting systems, even that, and modular systems, maybe because of AI and whatnot, that will be able to individualize language learning, have enough granularity in language learning that when someone goes to use a tool to aid them in language learning, it will be individualized to that person, like provide the motivation, how to integrate it. Like, for example, my first take is, do you have a job? Oh, you have a job. Is there anyone in that job that speaks another language? Start there. Because no matter what, you have to be at your job, right? And when you're at your job, do you already have another coworker who you speak to who speaks another language? That, in my opinion, would level the playing field between a child and an adult. Because you're alleviating the need to juggle an additional activity. So, long story short, like really long story short, the hot take here is the older you get, your lifestyle comes first. So make the language part of your lifestyle. If it's not part of your lifestyle, hopefully you're privileged enough to make time for it, or do not have to make it as part of an artificial part of your life. A child does not have a lifestyle yet. They don't need to juggle that. Whatever they learn is gonna become possibly part of their lifestyle. An adult has so many lifestyle choices. So how do I learn without being exhausted and burned out? I already do all of these things. Learn another vocabulary word. I've been learning English vocabulary words for so long that I can't even tell you when I'm not trying to learn English. So the difference between me, I would say, in a bad or good way or desirable way, if you will, is that I didn't stop learning a language. So when you ask someone, if you're trying to select for adults who represent the highest potential, ask them. Even if you're not learning a foreign language, do you stop learning your language? If they say no, then they are more likely going to be able to do all the skills that are necessary to acquire a target language at a heightened potential. And that would be far greater than their childhood self. But I think that doesn't characterize the vast majority of adults now. I think they learn enough language and they stop. So why is that important to know? Is because everyone's right. like, or I'm gonna phrase this in a different way. Almost everyone who has an opinion on language learning is partially correct. And I think this is one of the things that science teaches really, really well. When there are so many different opinions and or scientific corollaries that are happening, the reality is it's probably multifaceted and it involves all of the above. So I am actually not saying any singular person is incorrect. I am suggesting that any singular person has part of the picture, but the picture is far too multifaceted at the current state of the whatever we understand about human intelligence and learning to piece it all together. So yes, comprehensible input is fantastic. Yes, SRS is fantastic. Yes, formal education works because I still have yet to learn more than 2 or 3% of the stuff that I learned from 20 years ago. But this is me, as in someone who continued to try to learn language and be part of it. Spanish continued to stay part of my life. So I actively still retain the 20-year-old knowledge. Is that an example of formal education working? Yeah, kind of, right? Do I know how efficient it was? I really don't know. You can't tell anymore, right? So it's pretty neat and also disheartening. So if you're whatever age you are, at least I can say, if you can picture yourself using Japanese, for example, for no apparent reason other than it's always part of your life, that's the winner. I think that is the winner. Adults require, in my opinion, sufficient. We'll use sufficient, not require, necessity, but it is sufficient to acquire a target language if the activities that they are using for that target language is part of their lifestyle. If it's not part of their lifestyle yet, they can make it be part of their lifestyle. And then I would say it's almost negligible, statistically negligible, which methods you use. Because eventually an adult will leverage most of the methods. A child does not. Sometimes a child would stick to a singular method, doom or bust. Not doom or bust. Success or bust. If you put a child on top of like SRS, they will think that SRS is where they get everything, right? Isn't it coincidental that the ones that struggle, in my opinion, the ones that currently struggle with language learning are the ones that only stick to one method? Like it's even happening with adults, as in like children, like young adults from like 18 to 20 getting burned out on one method. The one method becomes so boring and then they become complacent, so they passively learn. It happens to children too, like all the time. An adult can leverage that. They know when they're bored, so they'll inherently leverage, seek new ideas. But if you're approaching language learning, honestly, it's not even about language learning, skill development. If you're approaching skill development like you were like a kid, so like that whole phrasing like, oh, I'm not as strong as I once was, or kids have more neuroplasticity, you can convince yourself however you want that you want to decide, yeah, I'm just gonna pretend like I'm no longer an adult. I'm just gonna throw all of that experience deep down, in the locker room somewhere, and reject and spend like 60 to 70% of yourself pretending like a person you're not, and try to embrace the past. Yeah, you're going to think that one tool teaches you how to be fluent. You're looking for that tool that teaches you how to do one thing and only one thing, so that you do it so well you're gonna get it, right? And that's what most people sell on the one thing, one-stop shop. In no way, when I started my journey, did I ever thought I was gonna stick to doing one thing, even with one thing. So Duolingo, day one, if you look at the video for day one of Duolingo and look for day 30, 60, 90, 200, 300, even with using one tool, I do not do the same thing or speak about the same thing in any of those. The idea is that's what makes you really exceptional as an adult. You have lots and lots of things you can use to help you. So it's a testament that 90% of the comments that I get on language learning streams and whatnot, it's about, oh, did you find the one thing that can do it all? It's like, hey, I see you only doing this. It's like, what do you mean I'm only doing this? Just because you only see me doing this, what do you, like, are you ever right? Which I have yet to ask enough people if they truly think that when you see someone do something, your first inclination to think is, oh, they're only doing this to learn something. And it could be true. I actually kind of believe that it's probably true. I would say if you go to like a video game stream, for example, someone's playing Souls games, and then the immediate comment that most people would make in a younger age, like less than 20, they're just like, oh yeah, Souls games are the best. What other Souls games do you play? Like, oh, I like this Souls games most. My first question when I go into it is like, what type of games do you play by any chance? Because thinking like a kid and thinking immaturely and, you know, like your younger self, your world is like this small. So when you're learning a language and you approach it like a kid, well, I wouldn't be surprised that the vast majority of people go around saying, oh, you know, you only do this. It's just this easy. Like, oh, all you have to do is move to Japan, forehead. That's the best way. Or you can use this tool which does everything, so I want to do everything to make it do everything. It's like, oh, I use Anki because I can take all the video game things and put it into an Anki format. I can take all of the graded reader stuff and put it into an Anki format. That's one thing. You're converting everything to one way of learning. And that, to me, it's poetically achieving exactly what people want. They want to learn like they were a kid. That's great. I read books because I want to read books. I watch podcasts because I want to watch podcasts. If I can't understand a podcast and it's incomprehensible, I use English subtitles and capture words based on the English subtitles one at a time. So you can make things into comprehensibility without necessarily having to be entirely in the target language. You, as an adult, know exactly how to distance and discipline yourself to capturing individual abstract associations. If you want to learn as a kid, yes, do total immersion. By all means, do total immersion. Throw yourself, move to Japan so that you're forced to learn as a kid. That's great. What else are kids miserable about? Well, they start neglecting their health. They have no form of professional outlook. They're not going to be emotionally intelligent when they start learning, right? They have to develop that again, and then they have to start over in a new life, right? They have to switch their entire lifestyle, uproot their entire lifestyle, and do that. That is good because you're learning like a kid. Awesome. Ask yourself, can you do it? If you can, it will probably work. As an adult, you are committed to it. So you have the oversight of being an adult, making a decision, and committing to learning as a kid. So that still works. in my opinion, because you're an adult. It doesn't work if you're actually a kid. If you are actually wholeheartedly, literally a kid again, moving to Japan, you will fail to learn a Japanese language. Like if you move to Japan, you're going to encounter other problems before you even manage to acquire the target language. Because in my opinion, you're forgetting that you're also an adult. So you can't do that negotiation. Like, are you discounting the fact that you can move to Japan? You can feed yourself? You can use your native language to get by while you're acquiring the target language? You can not say bad things all of a sudden, and then you can learn things the right way? Are you discounting the fact that those things don't exist to your contribution of learning a language? Because if you throw a kid in Japan without adult oversight, I think the most casual thing they would do is eat a lot, sleep, and run around and look at whatever is interesting, instead of forming abstract thoughts and sentences and writing poetry and being interested in like science or asking or debating politics. You know what they do? They doom scroll Coco Melon and watch the same clip over and over again. Over and over again. And over again. They would doom scroll and not realize that they saw the same repost 10 or 20 times of the same exact thing. Reposted and remixed. Now, 20 years ago, when I was still learning Spanish, I wouldn't be able to say this. Like, this is all retrospect, right? I think we live in an unprecedented time that while comprehensible input is being viral, right? It's great. Language learning, I think language learning it's a golden age for language learning. Opportunities, right? It's fantastic. I think language learning is on the uptrend. And yet, at the same time, we also live in an unprecedented time where children, their capacity to learn is being challenged by their innate human condition for engagement. While adults have the ability to exercise due diligence, they already struggle with that. When was the last time you heard a 25-year-old having trouble doom scrolling, yet they have all the time in the world, and yet because they have all the time in the world, they're bored because all they want to do is doom scroll? That's an adult, like, or what I would qualify as a young adult, right? 20 years old. Now you have a kid who's 6 years old or 7 years old, and you're saying, oh, they're good at learning language, right? Like, you just let them hang around the house and they'll just acquire language. No, they would be doom scrolling on Coco Melon and not developing communication skills. The reason why this is unprecedented is because the internet has been around competing for your child's engagement back then. Smartphones and devices and AI and whatnot and entertainment are not at the palm of most people's fingertips. Now, in my opinion, you'll see the value. Personally, you'll see the value of being an adult. An adult oversight is what makes that opinion possible, as a really hot take. Children are better at language learning because they learn a language with adult oversight. When you don't have adult oversight, children are terrible at learning a lot of things, but they are definitely wholeheartedly good at learning the thing that catches their attention first and continues to catch their attention. So yes, they can be really, really good at learning a language if it interests them. An adult can learn whatever they want if they have discipline. So an adult can learn things they don't want to learn and discover that they love the thing that they don't love at first. A child does not have that conception yet. They barely have permanence yet about their skills. And sure enough, in their 20s, I'm still talking to like 20-year-olds that think when they learn a skill, that skill is useless and a waste of time because their obligations tell them that the skill is worthless. And that's it. That's the end. I think that's childhood. That's immature thinking. When you learn a skill, you bring it with you, man. Like, an innovative thinker is someone like, okay, well, I like Spanish. How do I get Spanish to be part of my... I love video games too. Maybe I can play video games in Spanish. A child doesn't do that. If the game is in English, it's gonna stay in English. Right? Like, if CoComelon, if the first thing they watch, here's a good one. This is gonna be my last hot take. People who think that one language sounds better than another language when they're watching something. How much of that is due to childhood exposure, or how much of that is to adult discipline? Because I can tell you, when I watch something in English and I watch something in Japanese, they are very different experiences. A child would say whatever you watched first and you're used to is the most preferred way, right? You can't learn new appreciations when you're immature as a child. So much like language learning, whatever you stick to is probably the best way you've learned. And then whenever you have to learn a new way, you're probably not going to like it at first. But you can always choose to default like a child to the thing you prefer. So yes, don't teach your dog new tricks, I suppose. I mean, old dog, new tricks, right? So no, I don't like Duolingo as my only source of input, much like anything else. In another year, it's probably gonna look very different, right? And no, I'm also not going to abandon Duolingo like it's a waste of time. Duolingo is part of the entire process. So I rotate things through, and then I continue to collectively use all the tools. So that's probably one thing I want to end with today. I'm not gonna finish this, but don't worry, we'll get caught up tomorrow. It's no big deal. So today, what I really want to end with, we'll make it a special exception day. Today, what I really want to end with is adults are creative. Children can be creative, but they're more learning. So adults, you've learned a lot of things. Leverage that, right? Get creative. How could don't sell your experience short. Like, if you like to read something backwards, then why not read Spanish backwards? Or why not read backwards in your target language? Heck, most of my normalization of grammar is speaking English in that structure. Like, I legitimately, it's easier for me to read a Japanese sentence. Like, if I don't know something, I would translate it in the Japanese structure. You can do that. A kid can't. A kid has to understand the abstraction of the relation between those things first. And they would need adult experience in order to do that. An adult does not. An adult can love grammar more than they can as a kid. I with lack of a better word, I kid you not. If you hate grammar before, as an adult, you'll probably hate grammar less. Not that you don't hate grammar, but you would probably hate grammar less than the child, because the adult has form and abstraction. So whenever someone says, oh yeah, grammar's, you don't have to worry about grammar, or you don't have to worry about hearing things, or like you don't have to worry about story because children don't have to do that. It's like, yeah, well, children don't, because you're not a child anymore. Leverage all of it. Make nonsensical sentences. If nonsensical sentences get you to use and dexterously command words, that's far more than a kid can do, right? And you'll negotiate them. In fact, I would even argue that fear of developing a habit that you can't change is because of that childhood learning bias. Adults change habits very quickly if the habits are currently being worked on. In fact, an adult rapidly start habits and drop habits compared to a child. Like, some people always think about like, oh yeah, one day the child is playing soccer and then, or football, and then one day they're doing basketball. It's actually a lot longer period than you think. It's a lot of longer period than you. An adult makes a snap decision about starting something like, I don't know, every like 5 minutes. They don't have a one-track mind most of the time, or at least I like to believe they don't, right? You're making decisions so rapidly every single day. You can do it with language learning. So yeah, today is gonna be very special. We'll catch up with everything later, but we're gonna wrap it up here. Yeah, I'm gonna catch up later. But thank you, Esti, for the opportunity of answering a very interesting question, which I'll probably go into again later down the line. I think you gotta smile and remember that that kid that you once think of is still you, but you are so much more than that. And what's can be very disheartening and confusing is that we don't have technology or tools that would account for adult individualization, like adult spariousness. So the greatest success and a reward for becoming an adult is being able to come up with your own solution. And that's absolutely the mark of adult academic and intellectual maturity. The moment where you can synthesize information and you tell yourself, well, I'll use this aspect, combine it with this aspect, and here's my plan. And that's what I'm going to execute. And then if all of these come up, I'll take this, integrate it here and here. You are the inevitable problem solver. Now, there are skills that are in different stages in life, right? So if you start something that's super unfamiliar and you can't see the connection, then yeah, start with taking someone's advice, using it, and then know and understand that you are an adult. You're going to be able to innovate on it. Sticking to a tool, face value, it leads to that same discussion I was having with during Hansa Hero about people cheating on Monster Hunter Wild by using tools outside the system. Inherently, I actually think those people who know what they want tend to achieve that more rapidly than those who don't. Instead, those who don't tend to reframe and have a smaller world perspective. As in, oh, that's not fair. I'm not allowed to do that. I can't learn to use mnemonics. Well, you know, a kid can look at an adult and say, that's not fair. You're using mnemonics. I don't understand that mnemonics. It's like, oh, you're right. So as an adult, you're like, okay, let's not use mnemonics. Let's not use mind palancing or webbing or workflowing at all and pretend like all those skills are useless and then go and pretend and level the playing field with a child. When adult has to win against a child, an adult doesn't play on the level playing field as a child. So, in my opinion, why would you play on a level playing field with your younger self in language learning? It's kind of incredibly reductive and kind of a weird situation. There is a silver lining, and I still do it, right? In the end of the day, you can approach language learning with childhood zeal, so the enthusiasm of a child, with all the leverage of being an adult. So you take all your critical thinking, problem solving, and lifestyle choices, and your adult supervision that you would otherwise provide to a kid, and you slam it into your kid enthusiasm. When you combine youthful passion with all the things that make you an adult, every single content creator, in my opinion, nearly every single content creator that's a trailblazer represents those two things. Childhood, zeal, inquisitive nature, curiosity, and all the leverages of adult experience, right? You have the source of motivation and passion, and you have the lifestyle choices and discipline to make it happen. A child star we'll save for another time. A child star is way different, and most of the child stars that lack supervision, adult supervision, you can look up the success and correlate that too, since we're talking about correlation. So I won't go into that. But yeah, that's a wrap for today. I absolutely love it. I would really love to finish Duolingo Spanish, but no, we'll call it for today. I'm already over my time. But thank you again. I don't want to make it sound like anyone's wrong. I don't think anyone's actually wrong. I think all of the things that exist right now on the internet, it's connected. And it's such a cop-out for science or scientific thinking. But generally speaking, if there are so many supports for different perspectives, the more logical way is try to explain all of them at once with a coherent picture. So what I tried to do today is address as many of the conflicting things. How can all of these things be true? And I think my current narrative accounts for many of the popular ones, right? And that's adult thinking, right? Right, as always, right, we're gonna end here. If you're gonna watch this later, muchas gracias, right? You're always welcome to join along, drop your hot takes, maybe even ask a preponderous question in which we can engage in longer discussions. I'm always welcome to long digressions, discussions, even at the expense of my lessons. Lessons are secondary to forming memories and understanding about language learning, right? So with that said, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Hasta luego.